Next one up is Christian Decker. He's a Lightning developer at Blockstream and is going to talk about, he's got a very simple title actually. It's Security, Simplicity and DevOps, the trade-offs between a Lightning PaaS and running your own node.
Guess what?
And that's already half of the talk. So give it up for Christian Decker.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Chris, and for once I'm not going to shill L2, I promise. So today I'm basically going to talk a bit about my pet project that I've been working on for the last year or so, and it is all about how we can onboard the next generation of Lightning users onto the network. And I think you will sort of like the technical challenges and sort of the trade-offs that we make in all of this. So I shortened the title to be Deploying Lightning at Scale, which is much, much shorter. Okay, so what is our goal with Lightning, right? What do we want to do? Well, we want to give everybody the ability to join the Lightning network in whatever fashion they want to, and we want to basically enable them to have access to the Lightning, to the Bitcoin economy and the Lightning economy. However, that means that we have to take care about many different user profiles, right? Most of us here are pretty technical and are okay with running relatively complex systems, but many users aren't. So I might be able to run a Lightning node, but I don't want to force users to have to learn about all of the intricacies of the Lightning network before they are even allowed to look sideways at Lightning. What that means is that we need to have a spectrum of solutions that match the different user profiles and potentially provide users with the ability to sort of upgrade their experience over the time as they learn to use the Lightning network. And the sad truth is that it would be nice to have fully self-sovereign users, all of them take care of their own infrastructure and basically know all of the intricacies of the Lightning network. We as Bitcoiners very often have the reaction that, no, you're not allowed to even look at Lightning before you've read this 10,000-page tome to first learn about Bitcoin. Then you learn about Lightning. Then you learn about invoices. And then you learn about all of the risks when you don't run your own infrastructure in a safe way, right? I mean, running watchtowers, running databases, running backups. Who here knows how to securely back up a Lightning node? And I'm not raising my hand, by the way. So we have to somehow make it approachable for even non-technical users, and we have to be okay with the users choosing their own trade-off when it comes to security and privacy. And we should be there to help them through this choice by being objective about the trade-offs that we are facing for one choice or another. Okay, so let's quickly look at a Lightning network taxonomy. What are the choices for new users that want to join the Lightning network? Well, first of all, we have the split between custodial and non-custodial, right? Custodial wallets usually have the best user experience. There is no way around this. You don't have to learn anything to use a custodial wallet, but we don't like custodial wallets that much, do we? It is basically trusting somebody else with your money, and they might just abscond with your funds. Then and custodial wallets are then further split into account-based and hosted channels, sometimes also called multi-tenancy systems that are built on top of a single Lightning node that is under control of some operator, and you are basically trusting that operator with the entirety of your funds. If they basically run away, you're out of luck. If they get hacked, you're out of luck. On the non-custodial side, is that a pointer? Oh yeah, cool. On the non-custodial side, we have the self-hosted version, which has been so far the go-to case for many of you, I believe. And in that case, we in that case, you actually have to learn about how to operate a Lightning node, how to set up all of the infrastructure, be it databases, be it watchtowers, be backups, be whatever, right? If I drop my phone in the lake, what do you do now? With great flexibility comes a lot of responsibility as well. There we have the split into, well, do we want to have a node per device? That is often a choice that has been made so far, where basically we build a node into the Lightning application. Well, there are now really good tools to do that. LDK is an excellent example of how to do that. But it also means that if you use more than one app, well, you're now operating two wallets, right? You're splitting funds across these two wallets. And if you have 50 here, 50 here, you can't pay 60 because, well, there just is no way of combining them. It also means that the management overhead that you have is multiplied by the number of apps that you have. So if you have 2 apps, you now have to manage twice the number of channels. You have to manage twice the number of backups. You have to sort of pay twice the watchtowers, and so on and so forth. It also means that if you drop your phone in the lake, well, bye-bye funds, basically. Then there's the remote controlled node scenario where you have some sort of box at home, and you're basically remoting into that node from the outside. And personally, I quite like this because it means that I can have multiple apps basically be front ends to the same node. The funds are concentrated on a single node, and I don't run into this issue that I might not be able to pay an invoice despite having sufficient funds, if only they were combinable. The upside is I can drop my phone in the lake again, and my funds are still safe. So that's kind of nice. And today I'm going to present mostly a mix between these scenarios, and that's what I call remote control and remote signer. And we will see how this can be used to basically get the best of both worlds, make it easier to assist new users until they have learned enough about the Lightning Network to take on responsibility for their own node, and how they can actually migrate from this scenario over to this scenario. So it enables you a lot of flexibility, and you can basically, at a later point in time, once you have seen the upside of what this can do for you, now you are incentivized to learn and upgrade your experience to actually take care of your own little node. What I didn't mention is that remote controlled node and remote signer setups also have a way smaller sort of capture feature. Namely, if you integrate the node into the app, then you basically don't have the flexibility of trying out a new app that might have a new cool interface. No, you have to basically tear down the entire node, transfer funds, and then spin up the entire node again just to find out, oh, this UI actually doesn't work for me, so I'll just migrate back, right? With the remote controlled node, remote setups, you can actually switch between front ends and even use them concurrently as often as you want. So you could have the same node be fronted by a web browser, the same node be fronted by a mobile app, or you could give your kids access to parts of that node in the form of an allowance, for example. Cool. So you see trade-offs everywhere. We have to be clear about what these trade-offs are, and only when we are clear about what these trade-offs are can the user that we're trying to onboard into the Lightning make an informed decision and actually make the right choice. And we can't do much else than propose and offer solutions to the issues that they face. But ultimately, the choice is theirs, and we probably should respect their choices or encourage them maybe to learn more and upgrade their experience. Okay, so the system I'm actually going to talk about today is called Greenlight. It's something that we've been mulling over for the last couple of years in the background, and and only recently we decided that we actually give it a shot. So yeah, let's see how it works. Like I said, this is basically to onboard the next generation of users. It's probably not for you, but it is something that you can use to basically offer a very cool user experience that includes maybe Lightning payments without actually having to bundle nodes with it, and without you actually having to care about the intricacies of Lightning itself. So it frees developers from having to sort of write node automation software themselves as well. Okay, so the basic idea is we host a node, you keep your keys. So it turns out that there are many pieces in this Lightning infrastructure that can be shared quite easily. So there are quite a few pieces to run Lightning, right? You have the node itself, and many people stop at that point. Then you have the Bitcoin backend, which usually is the costly part, right? Downloading like, what's it now, 450 gigs of data, crunching through millions and millions of signatures. Well, that doesn't make for a quick and easy onboarding experience. Then you have the database itself. This database has to be secure. Ideally, it would be replicated. And you'd have to run backups. Backups, again, is a very complex topic in Lightning, and we're trying to make it easier. But for now, real-time backups or bust, basically. Then you have the watchtowers. Well, who here has configured a watchtower? Well, I can say now because I run on the green light. And then learning about the network topology. That's a big issue for mobile phones, for example, where you basically whip out the mobile phone and then you wait for a couple of seconds until it synchronizes the network graph so that you can actually perform a payment. There are other ways around this, and Trampoline by Bastien is one of the solutions that is definitely excellent. But it would be nice to be able to do that locally, right? And quite a few more things that one might consider. One key point here is that, well, many of these can actually be run efficiently and shared across many, many nodes. So every single user having to care to set up this is a huge overhead, when in reality we could do that on your behalf. And so what we did is we basically looked at the C-Lightning architecture, and right from the get-go we had this part. This is the aspirationally named HSMD. This is basically the only part that ever touches keys. So this is the part that actually signs off any change in balance, any coin movement whatsoever is going through the HSMD. And when I say it's aspirationally called HSMD, it's because it was, we hope to eventually have hardware wallets that will actually be able to run this code and have the keys segregated into a separate system that has very narrow interfaces, such that can be easily audited and be made secure. So, how do we go about running the node for you while you are in control of the funds? Well, let's take this and move it over to the user, and all of the rest can be run on our servers. It's easy. Well, turns out it's not that easy. It's quite a long research project, and it's still not quite done. But what we can do is basically we can take this sequence diagram and see where this how this works. So on the right-hand side we have the Lightning network, and if you were to self-host a node, you'd basically run all of this yourself. With a setup similar to Greenlight, what you do is basically you have the Lightning network, which is the public network. Then you have the node operator, which in Greenlight is Blockstream. And then you'd have the third persona, which is signer and front end. These could actually be the same device, but splitting them out basically makes it much more flexible. We can also have as many front ends as we want. There is no limit to this. You can basically attach your mobile phone, your web browser, whatever to it, and that's okay. So how does this work? So the front end running on a phone, let's say, scans a QR code and instructs the node to pay an invoice. The node then takes this command and transforms it into a series of updates to the internal state. These are updates to basically to the channels, to the on-chain funds, and so on and so forth. It cannot sign off on any of these changes. So what it does next is it asks for the signer running at the user for the necessary signatures. The signer receives not only the signature request, but it also receives as context the command itself and the state of the channels before this change was applied. It then authenticates this change, making sure that it actually comes from a front end that is allowed to issue commands and not some rogue operator on the node itself or an attacker that has taken over the server running the node. And only if these changes are authenticated, it will send back the signatures to the node. The node actually then takes the signatures, writes it all to database, performs the changes, sends out the messages to the peer, and in this case, adds the HTLCs. It will then receive from the network basically, hey, success, or well, try again. And then this loop restarts, basically going through this loop as many times as is necessary for us to complete the payment. And then the last leg would be basically, I didn't put it here, but it would report success back to the front end. Now, one thing that you can see is that the signer can basically be used to create an audit trail of all changes in the node. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. Okay. So what are the benefits of this? Like I said, it is basically just a remote controlled node, so the many front ends are possible. It also makes for trivial recovery. So what we built here is basically a way for where you can just from your seed talk to our servers and recover access to your node. So even if I were to drop my phone in the lake, well, I still have my seed phrase. I can contact the server. It gives me access again, and I can continue working on with my node without any downtime, without closing channels or anything like that. No splitting of funds. Well, that's true for every remote node setup. You can really easily go from this hosted setup to a self-hosted setup, and this is really where upgrading your own experience comes in, right? We want you to have a good experience up front, and then you're incentivized to actually learn about the intricacies of Lightning, and then we give you the opportunity to go for a self-hosted setup where we basically just give you backup of your node. You can import it into your hardware, and we're out of the loop completely. Any number of front ends, and all of this will be open source. We are already sharing this with a lot of teams that we are integrating with, and as soon as we go for a public beta, this will become public. And this allows you to have what some call an Uncle Jim setup. So if you have somebody in your friends or family group, then they can run this on your for you, and all you have to do is basically just talk to their service, and they can run any number of nodes for their friends and family. Turns out C-Lightning is really light. We can run about 92 C-Lightning nodes on a single Raspberry Pi with 4 gigabytes of RAM. So you have to be really selective about who is your friends in that case, right? It's just you, your family, and your 87 closest friends. So be selective. Yeah. The topic here is really onboard, give them a good experience. Now is the time to educate, and then eventually offboard. How do we do it? Well, you can actually teach users to incrementally take on more and more ownership of their nodes. We can tell you what a watchtower is, and you can install it on your own node, and basically take on watching the network for your node. We can stream backups from our servers to your node, so that if we were to disappear from one day to the next, you could just recover locally and never have had any downtime, and not have had to close any channels or anything like that. We can drive payments locally. So these are very interesting setups where it's very nice to explore some things. We can do trampoline routing if you have a high latency connection from your phone to the node, for example. You can outsource the actual driving of the payment, the sending out HDLCs, computing routes, retrying, all of that. You can outsource that to an external service, or you can move that onto your phone. Basically, what you can do is compute routes on your phone, and all the node operator sees are onions, just as if they were any participant in the network forwarding a payment. So in that case, the node operator doesn't even see where the payment is going. And you can deploy, you can have dedicated signers. So like I said, you could have a Raspberry Pi, for example, for your friends, basically run thousands of these signers 24/7, so that your node is basically always reachable. And the ultimate step is here, once you've actually done all of these learning steps, you can just come to us and say, hey, I don't need you guys anymore, and we'll happily let you go. You can basically just ask for a backup of the node. We will mark the node as exported, and you can import into your own structure. Yeah. Well, I mentioned before that in order to make an informed decision, we also have to be honest about the upsides and downsides, right? And one topic that I like to address here is that Greenlight is definitely not as private as running your self-hosted node. And this is a good reason for you to eventually offboard. Once you've learned about Lightning, there is no reason to stick with us, and we'll happily let you go. The server sees invoices and payments. Like I said, we are working on driving payments from the front end such that we only see onions. There is work ongoing where we can encrypt invoices, and we need the signer to actually accept payments anyway, so why not let the signer give us the payment hash instead of having it on a server. On the upside, since we have access to the logs, we can actually help you debug issues that you might have. So you can basically tell us, oh, there's something wrong, and we can look into the logs and tell you exactly what went wrong. Sort of a nice side benefit for us is that this allows us to inform where the future direction that C-Lightning and the Lightning Network as a whole can go in the future. It allows us to verify what is working, what isn't working. It allows us to basically test whether splitting payments eagerly or delaying payment splitting works better, whether pathfinding using one method works better than the other, and so on and so forth. And this has already given us a couple of things that we have moved back into the open source C-Lightning project. These nodes that we're running run vanilla C-Lightning. So anything we learn here is basically applicable to the wider network without much translation. Yeah, and we can assist you if you have issues. Ultimately, it is the choice of the user whether that's a compromise he's willing to make. And I think if we are clear about the trade-offs, we can, with this method, get many, many more users to actually be interested in Lightning, not just stick with a custom custodial, with the usual default custodial wallet that everybody considers the state of the art, and still give them a way to upgrade their experience, become a fully self-sovereign participant in the Lightning Network, and basically be an informed citizen in our community. So where are we today? So Greenlight is working. You can spin up a C Lightning node. You can register in less than a second. You can spin up the node in about 200 milliseconds. It takes about half a second for us to basically pump down the entirety of the gossip data. So after about half a second, you have a fully functional node that you can use to perform payments. That's usually shorter than the app on your phone takes to load. So we're pretty confident that this is quite nice. We are working on LSP integrations. Part of our pitch was basically to be able to take the user by the hand and guide them through the process, and liquidity being one of the big issues that every Lightning user faces nowadays. We want to have a solution for that and basically propose channels from a number of LSPs that we are integrating with. And public beta coming soon. I was about to say 2 weeks, but I'm aware that not everybody takes that promise with the grain of salt that we're used to, so it's just soon now.
So 18 months?
Well, yeah, 2 weeks usually translates into 18 months, yeah. No, it shouldn't be that long, but it will be done when it's done, basically. I should say, if you're interested in exploring these options, please come to talk to me. And like I said, we will open source all of this, and you will be able to run this all on your infrastructure. Please come and compete with us. I don't want to run the entire Lightning Network. Thank you. Questions?
So this doesn't necessarily solve the onboarding, like signing up and then receiving a payment, because you still have the channel. So there's still this period of, we need to create the channel that's going to facilitate it all, but the rest is.
So yeah, that is basically the tricky part that we're trying to get working with the LSP integrations. Part of that is basically that we are asking LSPs to basically ping us when there is an incoming payment, and we can open channels on demand with ZeroConf and Zero Reserve. And since we have some control over the node, we can make sure that ZeroConf is actually secure for both parties. Yeah, that is sort of still work in progress. But ultimately, the hope is that basically when you go to an invoice creation screen, you get told, hey, you're not wired up with a network, or whatever the verbiage is. Have I mentioned that I suck at UX? So I'm so happy that I now can concentrate on the infrastructure piece and have the UI experts take on the responsibility of what they do best, namely talking to users. Basically, you can then on demand, when it's necessary, you can ask them, hey, would you like us to open a channel to you? And then basically that's the flow there. More questions?
Is the API one-to-one with normal C Lightning?
Oh yes. So I mentioned before that one of the parts that sort of was backported from Greenlight into C Lightning, that is the RPC. So we have a very extensive JSON RPC in C Lightning. With Greenlight, we have introduced a gRPC binding with MTLS authentication, and that has now been backported into C Lightning. So we have the entirety of the C Lightning API be exposed over gRPC. So that has been a long-standing sort of request that we don't have a good RPC because it's basically just local. So the R is actually a lie there, right? And now we just re-expose that through a plugin, and that's part of what we basically built for Greenlight, and we're able to backport into C Lightning proper. Yeah.
Do you have custom plugins available on Greenlight?
So we don't currently have plugin support for user-provided plugins. Yeah. There are plans to eventually add 2 types of plugins. One is vetted plugins. These run on our infrastructure, so we better make sure that they're somewhat safe. We do partition the nodes quite well, but we don't want to have anything that sort of uses more resources and makes it basically be a noisy neighbor in the setup. And the second thing is that we can actually create webhook-based third-party plugins. So you could have an external service. You could delegate some rights to that external service, and whenever there is an incoming payment, we would then ping whatever integration that is and send a message to Slack, for example, if you have an incoming payment, or Telegram or something like that. So these are the two directions that we're currently looking into, though nothing is definitive at this point. Cool. Oh, say one more question? Yeah. Sorry, too quick.
All right, thank you. We're setting up the next. Oh, just another question. Okay.
Hey. I was just wondering if it's mostly focused on endpoint nodes and not forwarding nodes as well.
Absolutely. This is definitely not meant for routing nodes. One of the things that we have to take care of here is that routing nodes are very different beasts when it comes to remote signers, and these and endpoint nodes are just much easier to build these kinds of signers for. Usually, if you have a routing node, you have the skills to run this yourself. So don't be lazy. What I didn't mention, by the way, is that that all of the learnings that we're having here are also a bit of a research project for us, and ultimately we hope that we can take the signer and actually make it into a hardware signer as well. So hardware wallets for Lightning nodes, hopefully sometime soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.